Right now you are warm. You have heating, insulated walls, a coat you can put on in seconds, food you can access in minutes. You have never once, not for a single day of your life, faced what ancient humans faced every single winter. -40 degrees, no heating, no coat you could buy, no food stored anywhere, no way to know if spring would ever come. And they didn't just survive it, they raised children through it, they built culture through it, they made some of the most sophisticated art in human history right in the middle of it. Something was working, something we have almost entirely forgotten, and it is still inside you right now. Before we get into how they survived, we need to understand what they were actually facing. The last glacial maximum, the peak of the last ice age, lasted from roughly 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. During this period, ice sheets covered most of northern Europe and North America. Average temperatures across the northern hemisphere were 8 to 10 degrees colder than today, but average temperatures are misleading. Winter temperatures in Central Europe regularly dropped to -30 and -40 degrees Celsius. The kind of cold that kills exposed skin in under 5 minutes. The kind of cold that makes fire not just useful, but the difference between alive and dead before morning. And here is what makes this extraordinary. Homo sapiens not only survived this period, they thrived during it. Cave art from this exact era, the Lascaux caves in France, the Altamira caves in Spain, represents some of the most sophisticated artistic expression in all of human history. These were not desperate people clinging to survival. These were people with enough stability, enough warmth, enough food to create art. Something was working, something we have almost entirely forgotten. The first answer is clothing, and not just any clothing. In 2016, archaeologists excavating a site in southern Russia found something remarkable: bone needles, thousands of them, dating back over 30,000 years, thin enough to thread animal sinew through, precise enough to sew tight seams. These were not animal skins thrown over shoulders. These were engineered garments, fitted, layered, sealed at the wrists and ankles to trap body heat inside. Anthropologist Ian Gilligan at the University of Sydney spent years studying Ice Age clothing technology. His conclusion was direct. The humans who survived the last glacial maximum were not wearing simple cloaks. They were wearing the functional equivalent of a modern cold-weather survival suit. Multiple layers of animal hide and fur, inner layers positioned with the fur facing inward against the skin, trapping warm air like insulation. Outer layers positioned with the fur facing outward, shedding wind and moisture. Seams sewn so tightly that wind could not penetrate, hoods that closed around the face, leaving only the eyes and nose exposed. They had reverse-engineered the physics of warmth 20,000 years before anyone understood what physics was. But clothing alone does not keep you alive through a winter that lasts 6 months. You need food. And in an Ice Age winter, food does not come to you. Here is what the archaeological record tells us about how ancient humans ate through the coldest months. They planned. Months in advance. Excavations of Ice Age campsites across Europe have revealed enormous concentrations of animal bones. Mammoths, reindeer, bison, all processed and stored in specific ways. The bones were cracked open for marrow. Fat was rendered and stored in animal bladders and stomach pouches. Meat was dried and frozen. The ice itself became a natural preservation system. Researcher Olga Soffer at the University of Illinois documented what she called the Ice Age Pantry. Ancient humans were not surviving winter by hunting through the cold. They were building food reserves in autumn large enough to last until spring. They understood seasonal cycles with a precision that most modern humans have never needed to develop. They knew exactly when the reindeer herds migrated, exactly when the salmon ran, exactly how much fat a human body needs to generate heat through a winter at -30 degrees. And they hunted and stored accordingly. This was not instinct. This was knowledge, accumulated over generations, passed down not in writing but in story, in ritual, in the specific knowledge of exactly which plants stored the most calories and exactly which animal parts kept the longest in frozen storage. But here is the part that changes how you see everything. The most important survival technology ancient humans had during brutal winters was not clothing. It was not food storage. It was not even fire. It was each other. Anthropologist Brian Hare at Duke University has spent his career studying what he calls survival sociality, the specific way humans use social bonds as a survival mechanism. His research points to something the archaeological record confirms again and again. The campsites that survived brutal winters were not the largest. They were not the best positioned. They were the most socially connected. Ancient humans during the last glacial maximum lived in networks, not just one group huddled in one cave, but interconnected bands spread across territories, sharing information, sharing resources, sharing warmth. When one group's food ran low, another group's surplus filled the gap. When one group lost members to cold or predators, another group sent people to maintain the size necessary for survival. Archaeologists have traced the movement of specific stone tools, obsidian, flint, hundreds of miles from their origin points across Ice Age Europe. These tools didn't walk themselves. They moved through gift networks, through alliances, through the kind of social infrastructure that meant no single group was ever truly alone against the winter. And here is what modern science adds to this picture. In 2017, researchers studying cold exposure at the University of Maastricht found something that reframed how we understand the human body's relationship with cold. The human body does not simply lose heat in the cold, it activates. Brown adipose tissue, a type of body fat that generates heat directly by burning calories, becomes significantly more active in humans who experience regular cold exposure. Wim Hof, the Dutch extreme athlete who has climbed Everest in shorts, has made this famous in the modern world. But ancient humans didn't need a special technique. They lived in the cold, every day, every winter. Their bodies were permanently adapted to it in ways that most modern humans have completely lost. Regular cold exposure also triggers the release of norepinephrine, a hormone that increases focus, attention, and pain tolerance. The ancient humans sitting in a cave at -30 degrees were not shivering victims of their environment. Their bodies had activated systems that made them more alert, more focused, and more capable than they were in the warmth. The cold did not just threaten them, it sharpened them. 20,000 years ago, a small group of humans sat in a cave in what is now Germany. Outside, the temperature was -40 degrees, the river was frozen, the animals were gone. They were wearing engineered fursuits sewn with bone needles. Their food stores lined the walls of the cave, their social network stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, and their bodies, shaped by thousands of generations of cold, were running systems that modern humans have switched off with central heating and synthetic warmth. They did not survive that winter despite being human. They survived it because of everything being human actually means. The warmth was never just in the fire. It was in the needle that sewed the coat, the hand that stored the food, the network that meant no one faced the cold alone. You carry every one of those solutions inside you right now, built into your body and your brain by every ancestor who made it through a winter that should have killed them. The question is not whether you could survive what they survived. The question is whether you understand what you are actually made of.